The desert heat shimmered across the rocky terrain as Staff Sergeant Maya adjusted her scope for the third time in 10 minutes. The SEAL team had been pinned down behind a crumbling stone wall for over an hour, and the situation was deteriorating rapidly. What started as a routine extraction mission in the mountains of Afghanistan had turned into a nightmare when 7 enemy snipers took positions on the surrounding ridges. "Contact left, contact right, contact everywhere," whispered Lieutenant Commander Jake into his radio, trying to keep his voice steady despite the sweat dripping down his face. The team of 8 Navy SEALs had walked straight into a carefully planned ambush. The enemy had chosen their positions perfectly, creating overlapping fields of fire that made any movement potentially fatal. Maya had been assigned to the team just 2 weeks earlier, transferred from Marine Force Reconnaissance after her previous unit was disbanded. The SEALs had been skeptical about accepting a Marine, especially a woman, into their tight-knit brotherhood. They had made their doubts clear through sideways glances and carefully worded questions about her qualifications. Maya understood their concerns, but she also knew her record spoke for itself. 137 confirmed kills across 3 deployments, with not a single mission failure. The mission had started simple enough. Intelligence indicated that a high-value target, a Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces, was hiding in a compound 15 kilometers into hostile territory. The plan called for a night insertion via helicopter, followed by a dawn raid on the compound. Maya's role was designated as Overwatch, providing long-range precision fire support from an elevated position while the assault team moved in. Everything went wrong from the moment they stepped off the helicopter. The landing zone, which satellite imagery had shown as clear just 48 hours earlier, was now under observation by enemy forces. The Taliban had somehow learned about the operation, or perhaps they had simply gotten lucky with their patrol patterns. Either way, the SEALs found themselves under fire before they had moved more than 200 meters from their insertion point. "We've got movement on the North Ridge," called out Petty Officer, the team's forward observer. He was pressed flat against the ground behind a boulder, his binoculars scanning the distant mountainsides. "Multiple positions, maybe 4 or 5 shooters." "South Ridge too," added Petty Officer Williams from his position near the wall. "At least 3 more up there, they've got us bracketed." Maya remained silent, studying the terrain through her high-powered scope. The M110 semi-automatic sniper system felt familiar in her hands, its weight and balance as comfortable as an old friend. She had carried this same rifle through the streets of, across the mountains of eastern Afghanistan, and through countless hours of training. The weapon had never let her down, and she had no intention of letting it down now. Lieutenant Commander crawled over to Maya's position, keeping his head low as bullets periodically cracked overhead. "What's your assessment? Can you get a clear shot at any of these guys?" Maya continued scanning the ridges, her trained eye picking out details that others might miss. The enemy snipers had chosen their positions well, taking advantage of natural rock formations and sparse vegetation to break up their silhouettes. But Maya had been hunting skilled shooters for years, and she knew how to spot the tiny inconsistencies that gave away a hidden position. "I can see muzzle flashes from at least 6 positions," she reported quietly. "Range varies from 800 to 1200 meters. They're good, but they're not perfect. I can spot them when they fire." "Can you take them out?" Maya was quiet for a moment, calculating distances, wind speed, and the complex geometry of engaging multiple targets across varied terrain. "I'll need to move to get clean shots on all of them. This position only gives me angles on 3, maybe 4 of their holes." Nodded grimly. Moving in their current situation meant exposing herself to return fire from the very snipers she was trying to eliminate. It was a dangerous gamble, but staying pinned down was slowly becoming a death sentence. Their radio calls for air support had been answered with the disappointing news that no aircraft were available for immediate close air support. The nearest Apache gunships were committed to another operation 50 kilometers to the west. "What do you need?" asked. "Give me covering fire when I move. I'll work my way to that ridgeline about 200 meters east. From there, I should have sight lines on all their positions." Maya pointed to a rocky outcropping that would require her to cross about 50 meters of open ground. "Once I'm in position, I'll work from north to south. Keep your heads down and watch for my signals." Studied the route Maya had indicated, noting the exposure she would face during the movement. "That's a lot of open ground to cover under fire." "I've done worse," Maya replied simply, and something in her tone made believe her. The team prepared for Maya's movement while she made her final equipment checks. Extra magazines went into easily accessible pouches. Her rangefinder was clipped to her vest within easy reach, and that her rifle's scope was properly zeroed. The wind was relatively calm, maybe 3 to 5 knots from the northwest, which would affect her longer shots but remained within manageable parameters. "Ready when you are," whispered. Maya took a deep breath and exploded into motion. The covering fire from her teammates erupted almost instantly, their M4 carbines sending rapid bursts toward the known enemy positions. The noise was deafening, echoing off the rocky walls and creating enough chaos to mask Maya's movement across the open ground. Bullets immediately began impacting around her position, kicking up small puffs of dust and chipping fragments from the rocks. The enemy snipers had reacted quickly to her movement, but their shots were hasty and poorly aimed. Maya sprinted in a zigzag pattern, using every available piece of cover to break up her silhouette and make herself a harder target. She dove behind a fallen tree trunk just as a bullet whined overhead, close enough that she could hear the distinct crack of the supersonic projectile passing by. Her heart was racing, but her hands remained steady as she quickly moved to her new firing position. The ridgeline provided an excellent vantage point, just as Maya had hoped. From her new position, she could see 5 of the 7 enemy sniper positions clearly, with partial views of the remaining 2. She settled into a stable shooting position, using a natural rock formation as a rest for her rifle. The first target was at 920 meters, positioned behind a cluster of boulders on the north ridge. Maya could see just enough of the sniper's profile to make an accurate shot. She adjusted her scope for the range and wind conditions, took a breath, let half of it out, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked against her shoulder, and through her scope she saw the enemy sniper's head snap back. The man tumbled from his position and disappeared behind the rocks. 1 down, 6 to go. The sound of her shot immediately drew return fire from the remaining snipers. Bullets began impacting all around her position, forcing Maya to duck low behind the rocks. She waited for the initial barrage to subside, then quickly shifted her position 20 meters to the south along the ridge line. The second target was closer, maybe 700 meters, but positioned in a more difficult location. The sniper was firing from a narrow gap between 2 large rocks, with only his rifle barrel and a small portion of his face visible. Maya waited patiently, knowing that eventually the man would expose more of himself for a better shot. Her patience paid off when the enemy sniper leaned out slightly to get a better angle on the pinned seals below. Maya's crosshairs settled on the center of the man's exposed torso, and she fired again. The .308 caliber bullet found its target, and the second enemy sniper dropped from sight. The remaining enemy shooters began to realize they were under attack from a skilled marksman. Their fire became more coordinated, with multiple snipers focusing on Maya's general area. She was forced to move again, this time crawling along the ridge line to avoid the increasingly accurate return fire. From her new position, Maya could see that one of the enemy snipers had changed locations, trying to get a better angle on her position. The movement gave her an opportunity, and she took it. The third shot rang out across the mountainside, and another enemy sniper was eliminated. The psychological impact on the remaining shooters was becoming apparent. Their rate of fire decreased noticeably, and Maya could sense their growing uncertainty. They had gone from hunters to hunted, and the sudden shift in the tactical situation was affecting their confidence and accuracy. Maya continued her deadly work methodically, moving position after each shot to avoid return fire. The fourth enemy sniper fell to a difficult shot at over 1,100 meters, the bullet traveling for nearly 2 seconds before finding its target. The fifth sniper tried to retreat from his position, but exposed himself during the movement, allowing Maya to eliminate him as well. By now, the remaining 2 enemy snipers had completely stopped firing, apparently trying to remain invisible until they could safely withdraw from their positions. But Maya had marked their locations during the initial engagement, and she knew exactly where they were hiding. The sixth sniper was the most challenging target yet. He was positioned in a deep crevice between 2 rock formations, with only the muzzle of his rifle and a tiny portion of his camouflaged uniform visible. Maya waited for over 10 minutes, her rifle trained on the position, before the man finally shifted his position enough to present a viable target. The shot required perfect precision, and Maya delivered it. One enemy sniper remained. Maya could see his position clearly through her scope, but the man had learned from watching his companions fall. He remained completely motionless, apparently hoping that staying hidden would keep him alive. Maya knew she could wait him out, but she also knew that every minute the team remained in the open increased the risk that enemy reinforcements would arrive. She decided to force the issue. Maya deliberately fired a shot that impacted just inches from the hidden sniper's position, intentionally missing to provoke a reaction. The psychological pressure of being the last survivor, combined with the near miss, was too much for the enemy fighter to handle. He broke from his position and began running along the ridge line, apparently trying to escape to the far side of the mountain. It was exactly what Maya had hoped for. With the sniper now in the open and moving, she had a clear shot. She led the running figure by several feet, accounting for his movement and the bullet's travel time, and fired her final shot of the engagement. The last enemy sniper stumbled and fell, his rifle clattering down the rocky slope below. Silence settled over the battlefield for the first time in over 2 hours. Maya remained in position for several more minutes, carefully scanning the surrounding ridges through her scope to ensure that no additional threats remained. When she was satisfied that the immediate danger had passed, she keyed her radio. All targets eliminated, 7 confirmed kills, area is clear. The relief in Lieutenant Commander's voice was unmistakable. Outstanding work, can you make it back to our position? Maya carefully packed her equipment and began the careful movement back to the team's location. As she approached their defensive position, she could see the SEALs emerging from cover for the first time since the engagement began. The expressions on their faces had changed noticeably from the skepticism she had encountered just hours earlier. "Damn fine shooting," said as Maya settled back into position with the team. "I've never seen anything like that." Petty officer nodded in agreement. 7 targets at those ranges, and you took them all out in less than an hour. That was some seriously impressive marksmanship. Maya simply nodded in acknowledgement, already focused on the next phase of their mission. The immediate threat had been eliminated, but they still had a job to complete. The high-value target was still somewhere in the compound ahead, and the team's insertion had almost certainly been compromised. "What's the plan now?" she asked. The team leader consulted his map and checked his watch. "We're behind schedule, but we can still make this work. The compound is only 3 clicks ahead, and with those snipers eliminated, we should have a clear approach route." As the SEALs prepared to move out toward their objective, Maya noticed that the dynamic within the team had shifted. The whispered conversations and skeptical glances had been replaced by professional respect and genuine acceptance. She had proven herself in the most direct way possible, under fire and under pressure. But Maya knew that this was just the beginning. The most dangerous part of their mission still lay ahead, and the enemy would be expecting them now. The compound would be alerted to their presence, and any element of surprise was lost. What had started as a surgical strike would now likely turn into a direct assault against a prepared and determined enemy. The team moved out in tactical formation, with Maya taking her designated position as rear security. As they advanced toward the target compound, she maintained constant vigilance. The compound appeared through Maya's scope like a fortress carved into the mountainside. 3 buildings constructed of local stone and reinforced concrete formed a rough triangle around a central courtyard. High walls connected the structures, creating a defensive perimeter that would be difficult to breach. Maya counted at least 12 armed guards patrolling the walls and positioned at strategic points around the complex. "Target building is the center structure," Lieutenant Commander whispered, studying the compound through his binoculars. "Intelligence indicates our HVT is most likely in the main room on the 2nd floor. We need to get in there and confirm his identity before extracting him." The team had taken position on a ridge overlooking the compound, approximately 400 meters from the nearest wall. Maya had established her overwatch position among a cluster of rocks that provided excellent concealment while giving her clear sight lines into the target area. The afternoon sun was beginning to cast longer shadows, which would help mask their approach, but also create more places for defenders to hide. "I count 15 hostiles in the immediate area," Maya reported quietly. "At least 4 more in the towers, probably 6 to 8 more we can't see from this angle." Petty Officer Williams, the team's demolitions expert, studied the compound's defenses through his own optics. Those walls look solid, maybe 2 feet thick. We're going to need significant charges to breach them effectively. Negative on explosive entry, replied immediately. Too much noise, too much structural damage. We need our target alive and coherent. This is going to have to be a stealth approach until we're inside. Maya continued her careful observation of the compound, noting the patterns of the guard patrols and identifying potential weaknesses in their defensive setup. The guards appeared well-trained and alert, but they were following predictable routes and timing. She could see opportunities for the team to exploit during their approach. Southwest corner of the compound, Maya said, pointing toward a section of wall that appeared less heavily defended. Guard patrol passes that point every 8 minutes. There's a blind spot behind that storage building where the team could breach the wall without being seen. Followed her indication and nodded approvingly. Good eye, that looks like our best option for initial entry. The team began planning their assault in detail, with each member contributing their expertise to create a comprehensive approach plan. Maya would remain in overwatch position, providing precision fire support and eliminating any threats that emerged during the operation. The 7-man assault team would move to the compound under cover of darkness, breach the wall at the designated point, and then fight their way to the target building. Rules of engagement remain the same, reminded his team. We're looking for positive identification on our primary target. Secondary objectives include any intelligence materials we can recover quickly. But our main job is to get in, confirm our target, and get out. As darkness fell across the mountainous terrain, the team prepared for their final approach. Maya checked her equipment one more time, ensuring that her night vision scope was properly calibrated and her rifle was loaded with match-grade ammunition. The distance to the compound was well within her effective range, and the elevated position gave her excellent fields of fire into the target area. Overwatch in position and ready, Maya reported as the assault team began their movement toward the compound. The SEALs moved like shadows across the rocky ground, using every piece of available cover to mask their approach. Maya tracked their progress through her scope, while simultaneously monitoring the compound for any signs that their presence had been detected. The enemy guards continued their routine patrols, apparently unaware that 8 highly trained special operations soldiers were closing in on their position. Maya's role during the approach phase was to observe and report, while being ready to provide immediate fire support if the team was discovered prematurely. She watched as the SEALs reached the compound's outer perimeter and began their final approach to the breach point she had identified. Movement in the main building, Maya whispered into her radio. Second floor window, east side. I can see at least 3 individuals, but I can't get positive identification from this distance. Copy that, replied quietly. Continue to observe and report. The assault team reached the compound wall exactly as planned, timing their arrival to coincide with the gap in the guard patrol pattern. Williams quickly placed shaped charges against the stone wall while his teammates provided security. The charges were designed to create a man-sized opening without generating the massive explosion that would alert the entire compound to their presence. Charges set, Williams reported. Ready for breach on your command. Execute breach, ordered. The shaped charges detonated with a sharp crack rather than a booming explosion, sending chunks of stone and concrete flying inward while creating a hole large enough for the team to move through quickly. Maya watched through her scope as the SEALs flowed through the breach point like water, immediately establishing security positions inside the compound. Almost instantly, shouts erupted from multiple points around the compound as the defenders realized they were under attack. Maya could see muzzle flashes beginning to appear from windows and defensive positions as the enemy responded to the intrusion. Contact front, Kame's voice over the radio, tense but controlled. Moving toward target building now. Maya immediately began engaging targets that posed the greatest threat to the assault team's movement. Her first shot eliminated a guard who had emerged from the main building and was attempting to set up a machine gun position overlooking the courtyard. The .308 caliber bullet struck the man's center mass, dropping him instantly and denying the enemy a key defensive position. Her second shot took down a sniper who had appeared in a second-story window of the eastern building. Maya could see the man's rifle barrel protruding from the window, and she put a round through the opening before he could acquire a target among the advancing SEALs. "Two down," Maya reported calmly, already scanning for her next target. The firefight intensified rapidly as more defenders emerged from concealed positions throughout the compound. Maya found herself engaging multiple targets in quick succession, her rifle cracking repeatedly as she eliminated threats across the complex. Each shot was carefully aimed and precisely delivered, designed to neutralize specific threats without endangering the assault team moving below. "Heavy resistance on the ground floor," reported, his voice nearly drowned out by the sound of automatic weapons fire. "We're fighting room to room toward the stairs." Maya could see the progress of the assault team through windows and doorways as they fought their way through the main building. The enemy was putting up determined resistance, but the SEALs' superior training and equipment were beginning to tell. They moved with disciplined precision, using coordinated fire and movement to overwhelm defenders while minimizing their own exposure. A new threat emerged from the compound's northern building as a group of enemy fighters attempted to flank the assault team's position. Maya immediately engaged the flanking force, eliminating 3 fighters with rapid, accurate shots before the remaining enemies retreated back into the building. "Flanking attempt neutralized," Maya reported. "Northern building is still active with multiple hostiles." "Copy that, we're almost to the second floor." Maya continued her Overwatch mission, systematically eliminating threats as they appeared while monitoring the overall tactical situation. The enemy's initial surprise had given way to a more organized defense, and she could see additional fighters moving toward the compound from positions farther up the mountain. Reinforcements were beginning to arrive, which meant the team's window for completing their mission was rapidly closing. "Movement to the north," Maya warned. "Looks like at least 8 to 10 additional hostiles moving toward your position, ETA approximately 5 minutes. His response was immediate and decisive. "Understood, accelerating timeline, moving to target floor now." Maya watched through her scope as the assault team fought their way up the stairs to the second floor of the main building. The sound of gunfire from inside the structure was almost continuous now, indicating fierce close-quarters combat between the SEALs and the building's defenders. She continued to provide Overwatch support, engaging any enemy fighters who presented threats to the team's mission or their planned escape route. Her ammunition was running low after the extended engagement, but Maya carefully managed her shots to ensure she would have sufficient rounds to cover the team's eventual withdrawal. "Target located and secured," his voice crackled over the radio. "Positive identification confirmed, beginning extraction procedures now." Maya felt a surge of relief at the news, but she knew the most dangerous part of the mission was just beginning. Getting into the compound had been difficult, but getting out while carrying a prisoner and under heavy fire would be exponentially more challenging. The enemy reinforcements Maya had spotted earlier were now beginning to arrive at the compound, adding their firepower to the defenders already engaged with the assault team. Maya could see additional muzzle flashes appearing from new positions around the complex's perimeter. "Extraction route is going to be hot," Maya warned. "Multiple new hostiles in position around the compound. I'll do what I can to keep the path clear." "Roger that, coming out the same way we came in. Cover our movement to the breach point." Maya shifted her focus to the area around the hole in the compound wall where the team had made their initial entry. Several enemy fighters had already moved to cover the breach point, apparently hopping to prevent the SEALs from escaping through their original entry route. Maya began engaging these defenders immediately, using precise shots to clear the escape route. The assault team emerged from the main building moving fast, with End carrying the captured high-value target between them while the other team members provided security. Maya could see that at least 2 of the SEALs had been wounded during the indoor fighting, but all 8 men were still mobile and combat effective. Enemy fire converged on the assault team as they moved across the compound's courtyard toward the breach point. Maya increased her rate of fire, engaging any threat that appeared while the SEALs fought their way toward the hole in the wall. Her rifle grew hot from the sustained firing, but she continued to deliver accurate shots at crucial moments. "Almost to the breach," reported, breathing heavily as the team approached their escape route. A new problem emerged as a group of enemy fighters appeared outside the compound wall, positioning themselves to ambush the SEALs as they emerged from the breach point. Maya immediately engaged this external threat, but there were too many targets for her to eliminate quickly enough to clear the area completely. "External ambush position at your exit point," Maya warned urgently. "I've got some of them, but you're going to face resistance when you come through." "Understood, we'll fight our way through." The SEALs burst through the breach point into a hail of gunfire from the waiting ambush team. Maya continued to provide fire support, but the engagement was now too close and chaotic for her to effectively distinguish between friendly and enemy forces. She could only watch and wait for clear shots while the assault team fought their way clear of the immediate threat. "Clear of the compound," reported after several minutes of intense close-quarters combat. "Beginning movement to extraction point. We've got wounded who need immediate medical attention." Maya quickly packed her equipment and began her own movement back toward the designated extraction point, a landing zone approximately 2 kilometers from the compound where helicopters would meet them for the flight back to base. Her role now was to provide rear security during the team's withdrawal, watching for pursuing enemy forces while the SEALs transported their prisoner and wounded teammates. The movement to the extraction point took nearly an hour, with the team moving carefully through the mountainous terrain while carrying wounded personnel and maintaining security around their captured target. Maya maintained overwatch positions during their movement, always staying far enough behind to observe their back trail while remaining close enough to provide fire support if needed. "Extraction birds inbound," announced as they approached the landing zone, 2 minutes out. Maya could hear the distant sound of helicopter rotors echoing off the mountainsides, growing steadily louder as the aircraft approached their position. The extraction helicopters were a welcome sound after the intensity of the compound assault and the tense movement through potentially hostile territory. As the helicopters touched down and the assault team loaded their prisoner and wounded teammates aboard, Maya took a final look back toward the compound through her scope. Smoke was rising from several buildings, and she could see numerous small fires where her shots and the team's explosive entry had caused damage. But more importantly, she could see no signs of immediate pursuit from enemy forces. Maya climbed aboard the lead helicopter as the aircraft prepared to lift off, finally allowing herself to relax slightly as they gained altitude and distance from the target area. The mission had been successful despite the complications and heavy resistance they had encountered. The high-value target was in custody, all team members were alive, and they were safely away from immediate threat. But as Maya looked around at her teammates during the flight back to base, she could see that something fundamental had changed. The skepticism and doubt that had marked her initial reception into the SEAL team had been completely replaced by genuine respect and acceptance. She had proven herself not just as a competent sniper, but as a valued member of their elite unit. Back at the forward operating base, Maya sat in the debriefing room facing a panel of senior officers who had flown in specifically to hear about the mission. The captured high-value target was already in the hands of intelligence specialists, and the wounded SEALs were receiving medical treatment. But the success of the operation had generated significant interest among the military leadership. Colonel Stevens, the commanding officer of special operations for the region, reviewed the mission reports with obvious satisfaction. "Staff Sergeant, your performance during this operation has been exceptional. 7 enemy snipers eliminated in 47 minutes, followed by precision overwatch support during a complex assault operation. Your teammates speak very highly of your contributions." Maya remained at attention, unsure how to respond to the praise. She had simply done her job according to her training and experience, but apparently her actions had made a significant impression on both her teammates and the chain of command. "The intelligence gathered from our captured target has already provided valuable information about enemy operations in this region," Colonel Stevens continued. "Your marksmanship skills were directly responsible for the success of this mission." Lieutenant Commander, who was also present for the debriefing, added his own assessment. "Colonel, I want to make it clear that Staff Sergeant's performance went far beyond just accurate shooting. Her tactical awareness, battlefield judgment, and ability to adapt to changing circumstances were all outstanding. She's exactly the kind of operator we want on our team." Maya felt a surge of pride at his words. Earning the respect of experienced SEALs was not something that happened easily, and she knew that his recommendation carried significant weight within the special operations community. "Staff Sergeant, how do you assess your own performance during this mission?" Colonel Stevens asked. Maya considered the question carefully before responding. Ma'am, I believe I performed my assigned duties effectively. The enemy sniper threat was neutralized according to the mission plan, and I was able to provide adequate fire support during the assault phase. However, I also recognize that there were aspects of the operation that could have been executed more efficiently. Such as, the initial engagement with the enemy snipers took longer than it should have. With better positioning from the start, I could have eliminated all 7 targets in half the time. Also, during the overwatch phase of the compound assault, I had to shift positions multiple times to maintain effective fields of fire. Better initial reconnaissance might have identified a single position that would have provided coverage of the entire target area. Colonel Stevens nodded approvingly. Self-assessment and continuous improvement are marks of a professional soldier. Your ability to identify areas for improvement, even after a successful mission, speaks well of your potential for future operations. The debriefing continued for another hour as the officers reviewed every aspect of the mission in detail. Maya answered questions about her equipment, her tactical decisions, and her observations of enemy capabilities and tactics. The level of detail required demonstrated the military's commitment to learning from every operation, successful or not. When the formal debriefing concluded, Maya was surprised to be asked to remain behind for a private conversation with Colonel Stevens and she had expected to be dismissed to rejoin her unit, but apparently there were additional matters to discuss. Staff Sergeant, Colonel Stevens began, your performance on this mission has brought you to the attention of some very senior people in the Special Operations community. We have a proposition for you. Maya waited silently, uncertain what kind of proposition might be coming from such high-ranking officers. We're putting together a new multi-service Special Operations unit, explained. The mission will involve high-value targeting operations in extremely challenging environments. We need operators with exceptional marksmanship skills, proven performance under pressure, and the ability to work effectively with personnel from different military branches. Colonel Stevens leaned forward slightly. What we're describing is not a traditional assignment. The operations will be classified at the highest levels, the missions will be extraordinarily dangerous, and the training will be unlike anything you've experienced before. But the opportunity to make a significant impact on national security operations would be substantial. Maya felt her pulse quicken at the description. The offer represented exactly the kind of challenging assignment she had always hoped for, an opportunity to use her skills at the highest possible level. But she also understood that accepting would mean leaving behind everything familiar about her current military career. Ma'am, can you provide any additional details about the unit's mission or structure? Limited details only, Colonel Stevens replied. The unit will be small, probably no more than 12 to 15 operators total. Missions will typically involve deep penetration into hostile territory with minimal support. Expected deployment tempo will be high, with little time between operations. Training will take place at various classified facilities over a 6-month period before the unit becomes operational. Added his own perspective. I'll be completely honest with you. This is not an assignment for everyone. The physical and mental demands will be extreme, and there's no guarantee that everyone who starts the training will complete it successfully. But for operators who do make it through, the opportunity to serve at the absolute pinnacle of special operations is unmatched. Maya considered the offer carefully. Her current assignment with the SEALs had been challenging and rewarding, but the prospect of joining an even more elite unit was tremendously appealing. The chance to work with the best operators from across all military services on missions that could have strategic impact was exactly what she had been working toward throughout her military career. What would be required from me if I accepted this assignment? Immediate transfer to the new unit, followed by 6 months of intensive training and evaluation, Colonel Stevens explained. During the training period, you would be evaluated not just on your technical skills, but on your ability to adapt to new operational methods, work effectively with unfamiliar team members, and handle the psychological pressures of sustained high-level operations. And if I don't successfully complete the training, you would return to your previous assignment with no negative impact on your career record, assured her. In fact, just being selected for this opportunity would be viewed favorably in any future assignments or promotions. Maya realized that this was likely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The chance to work at the highest levels of special operations, with unlimited resources and support, was not something that would come again. But she also understood the risks involved, both professional and personal. How much time do I have to make this decision? 48 hours, Colonel Stevens replied. The training cycle begins next week, so we need your answer quickly to arrange transfer orders and security clearances. After the officers dismissed her, Maya spent the rest of the day thinking about the offer while she cleaned and maintained her equipment. The other members of the SEAL team noticed her preoccupation, but respected her privacy, understanding that she was dealing with something significant. That evening, she found sitting alone in the base mess hall, reviewing reports from the day's operations. She approached his table hesitantly, unsure whether it was appropriate to seek his advice about such a personal decision. "Mind if I join you, sir?" Looked up from his paperwork and gestured to an empty chair. "Of course, I assume you want to talk about the offer." Maya sat down and considered how to phrase her questions. "Sir, in your opinion, do you think I'm ready for this level of assignment? I've only been working with special operations units for a relatively short time." Set down his pen and gave her his full attention. "I've been in special operations for 15 years, and I've worked with some of the best operators in the military. What I saw from you during today's mission was exceptional by any standard. Your technical skills are obviously outstanding, but more importantly, your judgment and decision-making under pressure were exactly what we need in high-level operations." But is technical skill enough? From what Colonel Stevens described, this new unit will require capabilities that go far beyond just accurate shooting. "You're absolutely right," agreed. "But I've also observed your adaptability, your ability to work effectively with a new team, and your commitment to mission success above personal recognition. Those qualities are much more rare than good marksmanship, and they're much more important for the kind of operations this unit will be conducting." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "What about the risks, both to the mission and to my career?" Leaned back in his chair, considering his response carefully. "There are always risks in special operations. But the bigger risk, in my opinion, would be passing up an opportunity like this. How many operators ever get a chance to work at the absolute top level of their profession, and how many would regret it for the rest of their careers if they let that chance pass by?" Their conversation continued for another hour, with sharing his own experiences with high-level special operations assignments and the challenges and rewards they provided. By the time they finished talking, Maya had a much clearer understanding of what the opportunity represented and what would be required from her. The next day, Maya sought out several other members of the SEAL team to get their perspectives on her situation. To her surprise, all of them encouraged her to accept the assignment, despite the fact that her departure would leave them without their sniper support specialist. "This is bigger than any one team," Petty Officer told her. "You've got skills that can make a difference at the strategic level. It would be selfish for us to want to keep you here when you could be doing more important work elsewhere." Petty Officer Williams agreed. "Besides, after what you did yesterday, word is going to get around the special operations community anyway. You're going to have opportunities like this coming up regularly now. Might as well take the best one when it's offered." Their support and encouragement helped solidify Maya's thinking about the decision. She had joined the military to serve at the highest possible level, and this assignment represented exactly that opportunity. On the second day after receiving the offer, Maya requested a meeting with Colonel Stevens to provide her answer. She found the colonel in her temporary office, reviewing intelligence reports and preparing for her departure back to headquarters. "Staff Sergeant, have you made your decision about the assignment?" Maya came to attention and delivered her response clearly and confidently. "Ma'am, I accept the assignment and request transfer to the new Special Operations Unit." Colonel Stevens smiled and extended her hand. "Outstanding. Welcome to the most challenging assignment of your military career." Within a week, Maya found herself on a military transport aircraft flying toward a classified training facility somewhere in the western United States. Her personal belongings had been shipped separately, and she carried only essential gear and equipment for the initial training phase. As the aircraft flew through the darkness toward her new assignment, Maya reflected on the path that had brought her to this point. From her initial struggles to gain acceptance among the SEALs, through the intense combat operations that had tested her skills and determination, to the opportunity that now lay ahead, She had consistently pushed herself to exceed expectations and prove her capabilities. The mission that had started with whispered doubts about too many enemy snipers had ended with her elimination of all 7 threats and her selection for the most elite assignment in special operations. Maya knew that the training and operations ahead would be even more challenging than anything she had experienced before, but she also knew that she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The aircraft banked slightly as it began its approach to the training facility, and Maya caught a glimpse of lights in the darkness below. Somewhere in that facility, other elite operators from across the military were preparing for the same training program that would determine her future in special operations. Maya checked her equipment one final time and prepared for landing. The next phase of her military career was about to begin, and she intended to approach it with the same determination and professionalism that had brought her this far. The whispered doubts and skeptical glances were behind her now, replaced by respect, opportunity, and the chance to serve at the very pinnacle of military excellence. As the wheels touched down on the runway, Maya smiled slightly to herself. The 7 enemy snipers who had thought they held all the advantages in that mountain ambush had learned too late that they were facing someone truly exceptional. Now it was time to prove that their defeat had been no accident, but rather the beginning of a career that would redefine what was possible for a dedicated professional soldier. The aircraft came to a stop, and Maya gathered her gear to disembark. Outside, instructors were waiting to begin the most intensive training program in the military, designed to create operators capable of missions that others couldn't even imagine. Maya walked down the aircraft steps into her new future, ready to prove once again that when others whispered about impossible odds, she was prepared to deliver impossible results. Lieutenant Commander caught her eye during the flight and nodded approvingly. No words were necessary. Maya had demonstrated under the most demanding circumstances that she belonged among the best special operations soldiers in the world, that the enemy's response to their presence was far from over. The sniper engagement had been just the opening move in what was likely to become a much larger and more complex battle.